Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial, and today we've got an episode on rust. There are three types of rust that I see very commonly on Battleship New Jersey. We're going to go through them from the easiest one to deal with. Well, I guess it's not easy to deal with because we don't really deal with it, but the least destructive, and that may or may not be true too, to what I consider the most destructive. So the first type of rust is called running rust. You often see that coming out of deck drains, plumbing, things like that. Running rust isn't actual rust like you see here where we've got rusty metal. It is more of a stain. The water running through pipes, which have not been painted on the inside because there's miles and miles of them, and they've been there for 80 years, are picking up some of the rust, and especially the rust color, from those pipes. And then when they come out and run down the side of the ship, it'll stain these streaks in the side of the ship. And you see that on all sorts of ships, Navy ships, everything else. Again, that doesn't show that the paint there is failed or that you've got corrosion there on the exterior of the ship. You do have corrosion inside of those pipes that's going to be difficult or impossible to deal with, but it's not damaging the outside of the ship where you're seeing it. The treatment for that is basically to paint over it. It's just a stain in the paint, so cosmetic treatment is fine. Some ships might even have pipes that come out to help divert the water off of the side of the ship so it's not running down, causing that rust. New Jersey did when she was in active service, at least in the 80s, but they had to be taken off so she could squeeze through the Panama Canal in 1999 when she was brought from the mothball fleet in Bremerton to the Philadelphia Navy Yard to be finally completely deactivated to be turned over to the museum in Camden. One of the projects we might undertake, depending on funding, is putting those elbows back on when we get out of dry dock and paint the freeboard of the ship. We'll have guys on paint floats at that point, and they will have access to all those through-hull openings, so we might be able to install something new at that time. However, I believe I counted over 100 through-hull openings above the waterline of various diameters, so it's not necessarily a small or easy project. The next kind of rust you see is the bright orange stuff that you think of when you think of corrosion. This we call flash rust. This area used to have paint on it, but as part of the pressure washing, we took the paint off, but it's been raining so much that it immediately got wet. So within an hour, this red color had formed on it and had already started to show rust. If I was to come back and paint this again, the rust would continue to grow under the paint and it would eventually bloom out and break that paint. You see something like this over here, and we're going to talk about that next. So we can't paint this yet until we clean it. This is relatively easy to clean. Pressure washers might be able to take this off, or mechanical tools like a cup brush or wire wheel will be able to take this off for sure. You can even use lasers or some rust preventers or rust inhibitors, some really thin pre-prime type products that a number of retailers sell. And that's probably going to be good enough for this kind of, the big problem on the Battleship, because she has so much steel and because she's over 80 years old, is this stuff. Pack rust or rust bloom. You'll notice it starts to get a black color instead of the real vibrant red color. And that's when you know you're in trouble. This takes really powerful pneumatic tools to be able to punch through it. Things like the needle gun we did a video about not that long ago. It's linked in the description below. Things like an ultra high pressure wash or piston scalers or things like that. Here we can tell that the paint on the hull of the ship failed at some point or was not properly applied in this area, whether there was oil there that prevented the paint from adhering or there was already flash rust like this that was just painted over. And so this continued to grow out. The iron in the steel alloy is continuously trying to return to iron oxide, what you've mined out of the ground. And so that's what we're getting here. Here's a piece of this scale. It's about a ½ inch thick, and it just all comes off in big chunks like this. None of this is usable anymore. This isn't steel plating that we can replace on the ship. It's got no power anymore. This is the steel wasting away permanently and irrevocably. That's one of the main reasons why we're putting the ship in dry dock. After 30 years between a coat of paint, we knew we were going to find some rust like this. We have found remarkably little. There's been about 3 sections like this, each about 9 square feet. So we're talking about less than 30 square feet of really severe rust like this on the entire hull, which I think is something like 125,000 square feet. So I don't know what that percentage is, but it's a decimal point of a decimal point. The good news is rust blooms out considerably more than the thickness of the steel it's taking away. So this plate here at the turn of the bilge is 5/8 of an inch thick. So even though we're seeing about 5/8 of an inch of rust bloom here, that doesn't mean we've lost all of the steel underneath or even half of it. We might have only lost 1/10 of an inch or something like that. And it's probably not going to be smooth. There's going to be pits in there. It'll look like the surface of a natural sponge. Areas like this are where we're going to concentrate the ultrasonic tests, where we're doing shots of the hull to see if the plating retains the original thickness. John Miano, author of a series of books including Armor of the Iowa-class battleships, linked in the description below, has done drawings of the thickness of every single plate on the ship based on the original blueprints. So we know what they were 80-some years ago when they were installed right here in the Philadelphia Navy Yard where Battleship New Jersey is right now. And we'll do those shots to see just how much mass we've lost over that time. And depending on what we see and where it is, we'll determine how we repair it. For example, this is in the middle of a plate. I would be willing to crop this out and add a new plate on here, although because of the curve of the bilge, that would be difficult to do. An alternative would be to weld a doubler plate over it. It's not the greatest because the rust under here might continue to corrode and it'll eventually pop the doubler plate out, but it's better than nothing. Another option would be to fill it in with a liquid metal type epoxy. If this was near rivets, we would do that. Look at this area right under here. You can tell that these aren't the original rivets. They've been ring welded. In the 80s, they found as they did welding work near rivets, it caused the metal to heat up and expand, which would pop the old rivets off. So they would ring weld over those rivets, but then that would heat up more steel and the steel next to it would pop. So you can see they've chased these rivets down between these 2 welded plates. Every single one of them had to be replaced. They replaced tens of thousands in the 80s. So areas like that, even though welding would be better, we're going to have to use the liquid metal just so we don't end up chasing welds all the way down. If you want to see this for yourself and how we repair it, be sure to come out for a dry dock tour weekends in April and May 2024. We still have a couple slots available, but remember there's a limited number of slots, less than 5,000 total, and once those are gone, you may never get another chance to see an Iowa-class battleship out of the water. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. There's a link in the description below if you'd like to donate to support the museum. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about us and the channel. Thanks for watching.